Hello. So the unit that my class is working on currently is the Love and Feuds unit. This is Romeo and Juliet. So how I introduced this unit is by offering background information about Shakespeare. So the students worked on a Shakespeare timeline and kind of put all the pieces from the biography together. And then because I know that the Shakespearean language is a little difficult to work with, especially if this is a student's first play, we did a Shakespearean language activity that required students to take Shakespearean language and translate it into modern language. And there was a keyword page where students can look at certain words and see the translation for them. And then they did vice versa, where they took a modern translation and switched it to Shakespearean language. So that was kind of a way to build background for them. And we reviewed important vocabulary words like love, fate, tragedy. And for the lesson that I wanted to focus on today was introducing Romeo and Juliet in the classroom. So we started off by first listening to Act 1 of Romeo and Juliet. So we specifically worked on Act 1 prologue and Act 1 scene 1. So what I tend to do is I have the students start off the day with a journal. So this is their do now warm-up activity. And I ask them a question on a presentation that I have where I screen share and they can see the question. So the question was, what causes people to fall in love? What factors can get in the way of two people who want to be together? And it doesn't necessarily have to be specifics from Romeo and Juliet. Most of the time, people just use whatever background knowledge they have. And from there on, once we go over the journal question, we get into more of an in-depth situation. So my criteria for success when it comes to students analyzing Romeo and Juliet is that they'll be able to analyze what two lines best support the central idea of the text based on the prologue, and they would explain why. So the lesson procedure would obviously start with the journal, and we would begin Romeo and Juliet Act 1 prologue, and while we are doing it, I kind of do a close read. So I ask students to read it silently to honor that silence, and then we listen to it again with a recording. So it's an audio of Romeo and Juliet, and I typically ask students while we read is, what do you notice? What sticks out as interesting, revealing, significant, or strange? I will call on students to answer these questions, and then after we do a close reading, that follows with revision questions that we work together as a class. And again, I have students answer these questions. So after reading the prologue and after reading Act 1, I will ask questions in a Google document such as, in which town is the play set? What does Shakespeare mean by star-crossed lovers? How does the chorus ask of the audience in the last two lines? So they're getting different depths of knowledge questions. And there are accommodations included in every class, such as copy of class notes, additional examples if students need it. So I teach an honors class and an inclusion class. So with the inclusion class, we usually specifically follow with maybe a video version, and then while we are reading the play, we do have accommodations for that where there's graphics that they can follow along with it. So when they complete the activities and they do the close read questions, that usually takes most of the block. So I always have them complete a ticket out of the door, so an exit ticket. My exit ticket for this specific lesson was which line tells us most about the world we are about to enter and what makes you say this. So they're kind of thinking about what is going to happen next. And for the whole unit, we kind of follow a similar outline with the lesson plans. So I have them silently read, and then we will listen to an audio. We'll do those close read questions. We will try to figure out how those vocabulary words such as conflict, destiny, family, love, all ties in with Romeo and Juliet, and what scenes do we really see that in. Typically, sometimes it will follow at the end of the week, once we maybe have read a whole act, that will follow with a quiz. So after we have read all of Act 1, we will do a review of Act 1 with a quiz. After we have read Act 2, that will follow with a quiz. And in this unit, there are pauses where we work on things such as a text analysis, where students have to focus on the central ideas and the supporting details. We will do background stories such as The Interlopers, where students have to compare and contrast the stories in both of that. And then we do an argumentative essay, where we speak about if Shakespeare should be included in classes today or should they not. And students would write an argumentative essay on that. I usually leave that for the end of the unit just because I don't want that to deter them from reading Romeo and Juliet or thinking they may not be interested in it. So with Romeo and Juliet, we really try to focus on the love and feud aspect and try to get them to understand how those important words such as tragedy and tragic flaw, tragic hero, tie into this story. And of course, I want them to understand the language that they are about to enter. So having that language activity really helps them transition into reading Romeo and Juliet. Overall, with this lesson, I usually 90% of the students will get the close read questions and they will understand the Google Documents questions that I have for them. And I think it helps that I let them read first, and then when we read the second time, it's more of a close read. When we take it step by step, they are able to remember more details. So overall, I think that the lessons themselves they work as a discussion as a class.